The night before the wedding, I accidentally saw Andrew's phone. He had posted a video of me using crutches in a group chat. Guys, who gets it? Every time I see her limping like that, it makes me want to puke. If I had known I'd be spending my life with someone I don't love, I'd rather have been the one who lost a limb. I really want to escape the wedding. The next moment, I was back to the moment of the accident. As Andrew wished, I didn't save him this time. This time, he lost a leg and went blind. Chapter 1. When Andrew went to take a shower, his phone started vibrating wildly. The moment I picked up the phone, I inadvertently saw the messages on the screen. Why not just go out for drinks? Get completely wasted, and then the wedding tomorrow will naturally be cancelled. Or just disappear. Come back in a month, and uncle and aunt won't blame you. You've been taking care of Emma for 3 years. You can't spend your whole life on her. At worst, you can just pay her family some compensation, or just pretend to have amnesia. I stood there in shock, my hands trembling. I couldn't believe it. The person I had loved for 10 years. While I was nervously and hopefully looking forward to the wedding, he was plotting to escape the wedding. With every page of the chat history I swiped through, my heart sank further. Guys, who gets it? Every time I see her limping like that, it makes me want to puke. If I had known I'd spend my life with someone I don't love, I'd rather have been the one to lose a limb. If it weren't for the value of Emma's family's company, I wouldn't have put up with it for so long. Every line was filled with disdain for me. He even sent a video of me using crutches to his group of childhood friends. In the video, my left leg was missing from the knee down, completely amputated. 3 years ago, when the accident happened, I didn't hesitate to throw myself at Andrew. I took most of the impact for him and lost my left leg as a result. I was a dancer, but now I have lost my leg. I fell into despair and a deep breakdown, but I remembered how Andrew's eyes were filled with pain back then. He gently picked me up, carried me horizontally, and patiently helped me practice over and over again. He promised me, word for word, in my ear, Emma, don't give up. I will always be with you. If you can't walk for the rest of your life, then I will be your legs for the rest of my life. But the chat history in front of me slapped me harshly. The video he made to encourage me had become a joke for them to mock me. My efforts to walk looked absurd to him. As I sobbed uncontrollably, Andrew pushed open the door. Emma, what's wrong? Seeing my tear-streaked face, Andrew's voice clearly became tense. He gently kissed my forehead and said, "Are you nervous about the wedding tomorrow? Is my Emma suffering from pre-wedding anxiety?" I silently turned my head away and bit my lip tightly. Seeing me avoid him, Andrew instinctively reached out to hug me, but when he saw the phone screen, his face suddenly turned ashen. He snatched the phone from my hands, his eyes filled with panic. I used all my strength to steady my emotions, but I couldn't stop shaking. Faced with my relentless questioning, Andrew couldn't say a word. After a while, he finally stopped pretending and his expression completely changed. Putting away his false affection, he roared at me. "What do you know? Do you know how I've been living these past 3 years? Every time there's a gathering, everyone has a beautiful girlfriend. And it's only me who's always alone. So many people talk behind my back, saying my girlfriend is a cripple. I want to experience the happiness of a normal person too." Every word from Andrew was like a blade, ruthlessly stabbing me, slowly torturing me, and deeply wounding my heart. His gaze towards me was both pitying and mocking, as if all the tenderness from the past 3 years was just his great mercy and charity. "If I could, I would wish you had never saved me." My nails were already embedded into my palm. At that moment, I couldn't tell where the pain was worse. A burning suffocation swept through my mind. I only felt a buzzing in my ears, and my brain was blank. Everything around me seemed to go silent. The next second, the scene before me changed. No longer was it the apartment that Andrew and I had lived in for 3 years. Instead, it was the back seat of a car. It was the day Andrew and I went back to university to collect our diplomas. With a loud bang, a vehicle turning left collided with a speeding tanker truck. Our car was rear-ended, and I was heavily thrown against the back. And this time, as Andrew wished, I didn't rush to him without hesitation. In the last second before losing consciousness, I saw Andrew trapped in his seat. Chapter 2. I had a very long dream. In the dream, I was wearing a prosthetic limb, dressed in a pure white wedding gown. I walked slowly onto the wedding stage. I was filled with joy, waiting for my prince. But the next moment, the big screen that was supposed to show the sweet life of Andrew and me suddenly switched to a scene of me wallowing in despair, crying uncontrollably. People were pointing and whispering, and my groom took the hand of another girl. He smiled and said, "Emma, forgive me. I really can't spend a lifetime with someone I don't love. I can give you a lot of money, but I can't continue taking care of you. The person I've always loved is Joanna." I was abandoned at the wedding scene, and everyone looked at me with pity. I felt like a clown cast aside by the whole world, never having hated someone as much as I did at that moment. The overwhelming hatred was about to engulf me. I staggered around like a madwoman. The scene shifted, and I was standing on the rooftop of a hotel. The white wedding gown fluttered in the wind. I spread my wings like a butterfly. All that remained in my ears was the piercing scream of my mother. Chapter 3. When I woke up in the hospital, Andrew was already in the emergency room. I stared blankly for a moment, unable to believe I was really back. I had thought it was just a dream, but when I pinched the flesh on my left leg, the pain was all too real. Overwhelmed with joy, tears streamed down my face. My mother held me tightly, her warm tears soaking my clothes. "Emma, you almost gave me a heart attack." I could hear the tremor in her voice, a mix of relief and horror. Too bad about Andrew. I was reminded of the last time I woke up, seeing my mother holding back tears and the chaotic, sorrowful cries from the wedding scene. Everything felt like it was from another life. It was so good that I had a chance to try again. Ignoring the pain, I hobbled to the emergency room door, where I could hear the overwhelming cries of Andrew's family. "We can't amputate. How can we amputate? Andrew is so proud. How can he handle this?" It was Andrew's mother's anguished cries. But no matter how much Andrew's mother pleaded, the doctor shook his head with regret. "Crush injury, and there are still blood clots in the patient's brain. It's very dangerous. If we don't operate soon, we might miss the best time for treatment." In the end, Andrew's leg was amputated, but his condition was even worse than mine had been. His left leg was amputated from the hip down. The doctor also mentioned that because the blood clots in his brain weren't fully resolved, Andrew had a high chance of losing his eyesight. Over the next 2 days, I visited Andrew frequently. The person in the bed was pale and motionless. He was nothing like the confident and arrogant Andrew of the past. I silently stayed in the hospital room, determined to wait for him to wake up. I ignored my own injuries. To others, it seemed like I was deeply devoted to Andrew. Even Andrew's mother advised me to go home and rest. I stubbornly shook my head and squeezed out a few tears. "I'm fine. I want to see Andrew wake up. I'm afraid he'll be upset." In truth, I just wanted to see Andrew wake up with my own eyes, and then tell him directly, "You look so disgusting now." How would the once adored and pampered prince react to knowing not only has he lost a limb but might also go blind? On the 5th day, Andrew finally woke up. Chapter 4. As soon as I entered the room, I saw the mess scattered all over the floor. It must have been Andrew's doing. The nurse was picking up the broken pieces. Andrew's mother had a worried look, her eyes red and clearly having just cried. Although Andrew was weak from just waking up, he still had the strength to get angry. It seems he hadn't reached the breaking point yet. I had underestimated him. Andrew lay on the bed, his eyes vacant, like a lifeless rag doll. As the doctor had said, due to the pressure from the blood clots in his brain, Andrew had lost his sight. But it was only temporary. Once his condition stabilized and the clots were removed, he could still regain his vision. Andrew's mother pointed to Andrew's leg and then shook her head at me. I suddenly realized that Andrew didn't know his leg was gone. But how could I let him see the truth? Of course, I pretended not to see it. I quickly moved to Andrew's side and held his hand tightly. Crying uncontrollably, I said, "Andrew, pull yourself together. Even if you've lost a leg, we can use a prosthesis. You'll still be able to ride horses and race." I knew Andrew would break down, but I didn't expect him to go this wild. He suddenly gripped my hand tightly, his voice tight. "What did you say? Say it again." I was startled and couldn't break free. holding back the pain in my hand. I continued to comfort him. Andrew, if you want to cry, then cry. I'll always be with you. Andrew, as if going mad, ripped the needle from his hand and struggled to feel his leg. But he felt nothing. First, he was stunned. Then his body began to tremble. He roared and pounded his right leg, with veins bulging on his hands. Andrew's mother cried and tried to pull Andrew away, but Andrew pushed her aside. The room was filled with his hoarse shouts, "Get out! All of you! Get out!" After a while, Andrew seemed to be exhausted. He let go of my hand, his expression desolate, still sobbing quietly, like a trapped beast. Chapter 5. I stood to the side, sneering, as tears streamed down my face. But I wasn't crying for Andrew. It was as if I was seeing my past self again. In my previous life, when I first learned that I had lost a limb, I felt the same despair. I had trained in ballet for 18 years. Even my teacher said I was born to shine on stage. But I lost my leg, and my dream was shattered. I still remember those darkest days. I locked myself in my room, refusing to see anyone, wanting to hide in a corner where no one could find me. Anything could touch my sensitive nerves. I almost self-harmed and even considered suicide. It was Andrew who broke down the locked door and carried me out of the pool of my own blood. He held me tightly, gently kissing my cheeks. "Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't protect you. If you're going to blame someone, blame me. Don't hurt yourself." Andrew convinced my parents and brought me to his apartment, promising to take care of me for life. But in the end, it was all a deception. After our engagement, Andrew used my family's resources to rapidly expand his business. In just 3 years, his family's group had become one of the top enterprises in Kyoto, leaving my family far behind. He even sabotaged my family's group during a land bid, suppressing us both openly and covertly. I had heard my mother hint at this, but at that time, I was too dependent on Andrew to realize what the person I loved most was plotting. It wasn't until I saw those chat records that I realized how terribly wrong I had been. Looking at the suffering Andrew on the bed, a thought emerged in my mind. Since I was reborn, everything Andrew had done to me, I would repay him in full. He didn't like me, did he? Then I would stay by his side. I would make him rely on me and fall in love with me step by step, until he couldn't live without me. Then I would throw him into hell. So, I bent down and embraced the sobbing Andrew. Under the shocked gaze of Andrew's mother, I promised word by word, "Andrew, don't be afraid. I will take care of you for life. Even if you've lost a leg, I will still be with you." Chapter 6. So, I took on the responsibility of caring for Andrew. I went to his apartment every day, come rain or shine. To others, it seemed like I loved Andrew to the extreme. Even Andrew thought so. After all, who could endure risking their entire future on a person with a disability? When my mom learned that I had voluntarily offered to take care of Andrew, she almost locked me up. She looked at me with utter disbelief. "I know you like that boy, but his accident has nothing to do with you. Why do you have to risk your whole life for him?" I also remembered Andrew's cold questioning. "Emma, go ask your parents how they pressured me." I don't know what methods my parents used to make Andrew relent. No matter how unwilling he was, he still put up with me for 3 years despite his aversion. But I would never get answers to that. After I assured my mother that I was fully aware of my decision, she finally relented. Chapter 7. Just like me back then, Andrew became irritable and quick-tempered after his amputation. With his vision gone, he was even more sensitive and suspicious. He complained about the nurse's footsteps being too loud or the chef's cooking not being up to standard. Within just half a month, he had already replaced several nurses. He had thrown countless items from his bedside. No one could calm Andrew down except for me, because only I understood Andrew's pride. I knew what he needed and the most sensitive spots. When he unintentionally pursed his lips, I would promptly bring him a cup of hot water. When he repeatedly turned to his side, I would help him to the bathroom. Andrew didn't like the chef's food, but he enjoyed the soup I made. No one knew how many times I had made soup for Andrew during those 3 years in my previous life. I knew his tastes perfectly. Within a month, all the servants and nurses had been driven out of the house by Andrew. From then on, only I was allowed into his room. Sometimes Andrew would show a look of confusion. Emma, you're so good to me. But Emma, I don't deserve you now. You really don't have to. I knew Andrew had started to rely on me, but what I wanted was still far from enough. I pressed my index finger to his lips. My voice soft and gentle. I know everything. I'm just so heartbroken for you. As long as you get better, I don't care about anything else. Andrew didn't say anything more, but there was more tenderness in his eyes. Chapter 8. With my attentive care, Andrew's temper gradually improved. The frequency of him throwing things decreased significantly. Andrew clearly became more dependent on me, but I knew he hadn't completely fallen in love with me yet. Because deep down, he still had a white moonlight, a person he idealized. As his health improved, the blood clots in his brain could also be removed. Andrew's family hired the top surgical specialists in the country for his operation. The surgery was very successful. On the day the bandages were removed, Andrew's mood noticeably brightened. His eyes kept darting toward the door. I knew he was waiting for someone. After Andrew had looked countless times, a white figure finally appeared. Joanna was a renowned talent in the university's dance department and also my roommate. Many referred to us as the two beauties of the dance department, graceful in posture and skilled in dance. In our second year, Andrew almost fell in love with Joanna at first sight. Since then, whenever Andrew came to see me, it was actually to see Joanna. I had loved Andrew for 10 years, and it would be a lie to say I wasn't hurt. Although Andrew had never explicitly rejected me, he had also never given me a clear answer. I knew I had lost completely. I had quietly stepped back, but it seemed they hadn't ended up together either. I wasn't originally jealous of Joanna. It was just that, on the eve of the wedding, I found messages between them on Andrew's phone. Andrew, I've missed you so much these 3 years. I have too. I regret not accepting you when you liked me. Now I realize that I truly love only you. Andrew, if I come back to interrupt the wedding, would you come with me? I would. Every time I think about those messages from my past life, I still feel sick to my stomach. I wanted to see if Joanna, who had publicly interrupted a wedding in my previous life, would still love Andrew. So, while Joanna was tearfully caring for Andrew, I brought the supplies for changing his dressings. Andrew, it's time to change your dressings. The ambiguous atmosphere abruptly stopped, and the air seemed to freeze for a moment. I hesitated, feeling a bit embarrassed as I stood there. Did I come at a bad time? But the doctor said the dressings need to be changed at this time every day. It's fine, Emma. I'll take care of it, Joanna said, taking the supplies from my hands and preparing to change Andrew's dressings. I was more than happy to let her take over. I was just worried she might miss the scene. When Joanna carefully removed the bandages from Andrew's leg, she was clearly startled. Andrew's left leg had been amputated above the thigh. The amputation site, still healing, was swollen and grotesque. The scar was like a wild beast, spreading menacingly over the skin, making one shudder. With a loud crash, the bottle of medicine Joanna was holding fell to the floor and shattered. She visibly took a step back, her face a mix of shock and fear. The atmosphere froze again, the room silent enough that every breath could be heard. Andrew, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Joanna's voice trembled. Andrew's eyes were filled with hurt and disappointment. You two talk. I'll step outside, not wanting to be involved in their conflict. I tactfully left the room. I heard Andrew's hoarse voice questioning. Are you so scared of me? Am I that terrifying? Andrew, I really didn't mean it. Joanna's voice was shaky, holding back tears. Soon, I heard the sounds of things being thrown inside. I couldn't help but smirk. Andrew had indeed been provoked again. However, it seemed he could only vent his anger by throwing things. Then came Andrew's furious shout. Get out, get as far away as possible, and don't come back. Don't ever show up in front of me again. Joanna ran out of the room crying. She ran and cried, glaring at me as she passed by, not even turning her head. The flowers Joanna had sent were all thrown out by Andrew. One almost hit me in the face. I gently curved my lips into a smile. So it turns out, so-called true love is nothing compared to disability. Chapter 9. Due to Joanna's provocation, Andrew's emotions, which had finally stabilized, began to collapse again. He became extremely enraged once more. He smashed things repeatedly and even started cursing. When Andrew smashed his phone again, I finally saw the barely concealed impatience on Andrew's mother's face. It's understandable. She doesn't have only Andrew as her son. Since Andrew became disabled, his father has only visited him once. I could tell that his father had already given up on Andrew as a son. His mother had also been incredibly busy lately. Not only dealing with women and illegitimate children outside but also managing the company's affairs. Added to this was Andrew's unpredictable behavior, which I imagine would be unbearable for anyone for too long. Andrew's mother no longer visits him every day, only every few days. Andrew must have noticed the change in his mother as his outbursts became more frequent. So, whenever Andrew lost his temper, I would silently stand behind the door and watch, since he didn't allow outsiders to come close and the servants dared not approach. When he shouted for water, I pretended not to hear. I would then cleverly appear after he had shouted several times. Furious, I would then hold his hand tightly and gently comfort him. Andrew, I'm sorry. I was making soup and didn't hear you calling. I promise I'll come immediately next time. Don't be angry. It's not good for your health. Even when Andrew was furious, he glared at me with anger. I could only stubbornly turn away and wipe my tears with a hurt expression. If you really dislike me so much, I can leave. Andrew finally showed a panicked expression. He grasped my hand tightly. Humble and fragile. Emma, don't go. You're all I have left. Time passed in this way, and gradually, I realized that Andrew couldn't live without me. Chapter 10. Andrew's health was gradually improving, and I had successfully passed the audition for the ballet troupe, standing on the familiar stage once again after 3 years. I was nearly moved to tears. To the lively music, I arched my feet, relaxed my shoulders, and danced like a butterfly. As I stretched my arms upward, it felt like I could almost touch the brilliant stars. With every leap and spin, I could feel an endless surge of energy filling my heart. Due to my excellent performance, the troupe leader specifically recommended me for a ballet competition. To practice better, I started spending less time at Andrew's apartment. The housekeeper called me several times. When I finally managed to visit the apartment, the housekeeper seemed relieved. You finally came. He's had another outburst. We can't calm him down. As soon as I walked in, I saw Andrew's emotionless face. He immediately confronted me. What have you been so busy with lately? Why haven't you come to see me? I raised an eyebrow inwardly. Even the proud Andrew was like this. I smiled at Andrew and cheerfully said, before graduation, I auditioned for the ballet troupe, and I got in. The troupe leader even specially asked me to represent the troupe in the competition. I deliberately ignored the increasingly sullen look on Andrew's face and continued to speak happily. Emma, enough. I covered my lips, pretending to have let something slip by accident. Then I glanced at Andrew's empty left leg with a look of sincere apology. Andrew, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I paused, then continued. I've just been so excited. I've been practicing a lot for the ballet competition and neglected you. After the competition, I promise I didn't get to finish my sentence before Andrew slammed his fist on the table. Are you just here to watch me suffer and provoke me on purpose? He curled his lips into a cold, self-deprecating smile, murmuring, even if you think I'm a burden. I was startled by Andrew's outburst and took a step back. Confused, I wanted to comfort him, but hesitated. I really didn't mean to. If you don't like me, Andrew, I can leave right now. I wiped the tears from my eyes and turned to leave. Behind me, I heard a heavy object hit the floor. It seemed that Andrew tried to reach out for me in his urgency and ended up falling off the bed. Seeing Andrew in such a pathetic state, I suddenly remembered what he once said about me. Emma, with her limp, really looks like a clown. How can I keep from laughing out loud? Ha ha ha. He used to share my suffering as if it were a joke. Perhaps fate has a sense of irony. And now Andrew is the one who looks like a clown. If I could, I'd love to film this moment and let Andrew see himself as the clown he once mocked. Chapter 11. Since that day, Andrew became increasingly clingy. He seemed afraid of my departure, calling me countless times every day. I was busy practicing ballet and often ignored him. He would send me long string after long string of messages. Emma, will you come see me today? Emma, I want to eat the pork rib soup you make. The soup the nanny makes isn't as good as yours. I didn't reply, just turned my phone to silent. A friend from the ballet troupe teased, "Having a fight with your boyfriend?" I laughed and shook my head. He's not a boyfriend, just someone who's needy and persistent. I suddenly realized that playing hard to get was really effective with Andrew. The avoidance of his white moonlight and the abandonment by his parents had turned Andrew into a neglected burden, and I had clearly become Andrew's most important emotional support. Seeing him so insecure and heavily dependent on me, I knew my plan had worked. As soon as I mentioned leaving, he would desperately try to keep me. The best is always what you can't have. I must admit, it was quite satisfying to torment Andrew every now and then. Soon, Andrew's birthday was approaching. Since Andrew's accident, he had become very afraid of seeing others. Even his childhood friends hadn't been in touch. A week in advance, I arranged with his friends to prepare a grand gift for him. Chapter 12. On the morning of his birthday, Andrew's friends arrived early. They brought a huge bouquet of flowers. One of his closest friends even had a limited edition sports car prepared. They wanted to surprise Andrew. When they entered, Andrew was practicing walking with a crutch. "Bro, look what we've got for you." The latest model sports car. At the moment their eyes met, I clearly saw the shock in everyone's gaze. It seemed the outside world didn't know yet that the young prince of the family had become disabled. The friends stammered, "Bro, you." Andrew's face turned ashen, with a mix of embarrassment and awkwardness in his eyes. Who could have imagined that the once arrogant Andrew would end up like this? Due to the accident, Andrew now can't stand the sound of cars, and the arrival of his racing buddies was like rubbing salt into his wounds. He clenched his fists, veins standing out on his hands. Seeing the car keys in his friend's hand, he nearly shouted, "Who invited you here? Who invited you here? Get the hell out of here!" So, a birthday party that was supposed to be pleasant was ruined. I escorted Andrew's friends out. Then, apologetically, I said, "Don't take it personally. Andrew just can't accept it yet." Everyone expressed understanding and left with looks of pity. When I returned to the room, I was met with Andrew's sullen expression. He gritted his teeth and asked me, "Emma, was this deliberate? Did you do it to make a fool of me?" Looking down at him from above, I didn't answer. Suddenly, Andrew's expression filled with profound sadness. He looked at me almost pleadingly. "Why are you doing this? I was ready to spend my life with you. I love you so much." Chapter 13. I couldn't help but laugh. In my previous life, when I needed his love the most, he found me utterly disgusting. Every time we were intimate, he would complain in the group chat. "Disgusting. I really don't want to touch her. When will this end?" And now, the one with the missing leg was him. He was ready to spend his life with me? Claiming he loved me? What a joke. Such cheap love. I don't need it. But now, it was my turn to find him repulsive. So, I recited the prepared lines to him word by word. "Bro, who understands? Every time I see her limping, I just want to puke. If I'd known I'd have to spend my life with someone I don't love, I'd rather it had been me who lost a limb. I really want to escape this marriage." Seeing Andrew's increasingly bewildered face, I stepped closer and whispered in his ear, "How does it feel to be trampled on? But this is exactly how you treated me in my past life. You, a cripple. Why do you think I would love you wholeheartedly?" Andrew seemed to recall something. He clutched his head tightly, and from the intense pain, he fell to the ground. He writhed and moaned in agony, beads of cold sweat appearing on his forehead. I watched coldly, feeling an intense sense of satisfaction. No one knew how many nightmares I had experienced since my rebirth. In my dreams, Andrew pretended to love me dearly but cruelly pushed me into the abyss behind my back. On countless nights, I would wake up from nightmares, terrified and shaken. I feared that my rebirth was just a dream, that when I woke up, I would be Emma abandoned at the wedding once again. I stared derisively at his amputated leg and taunted, "Andrew, you look truly disgusting with just one leg." Finally, Andrew on the floor broke down completely. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes, emitting a deep, guttural roar. He looked utterly pitiful. I ignored him, opened the door, and turned to leave. All I could hear was his pitiful plea, "Emma, don't go, please." Chapter 14. I had completely severed ties with Andrew. I no longer needed to run to his apartment. I focused entirely on preparing for the ballet competition. Within a few days, news spread throughout the industry that the prince of the family had become an invalid. However, his mom called me several times, each time pleading for me to visit Andrew. I had declined a few times, but she persisted. "Please go see Andrew. He won't listen to anyone else. Only you can make him feel a little better. Please, just for the sake of how I've treated you over the years, come to the hospital." After hanging up, I found the situation quite amusing. I had treated Andrew like this, and he still wanted me to visit him? Wasn't he afraid I might say something to hurt him even more? To focus on my competition, I chose to ignore the calls, days and nights of grueling practice, with no one knowing how much sweat I had shed. Only I knew. The stage, which I had yearned for over the past 3 years. Every movement of mine was graceful, whether in spins or leaps, bringing tears to the audience's eyes. Finally, I had the chance to step back onto that stage, and I was determined to seize the opportunity. On the day of the competition, I won by an overwhelming margin. The applause from the audience was thunderous, making my ears ring. On stage, my eyes were brimming with tears, overwhelmed with emotion. At that moment, I forgot about the hatred and pain. I was simply the most radiant swan on the stage. It felt like a heavy burden had been lifted from my heart. After the competition ended, I received a call from Andrew. His voice on the phone was gentle, even with a hint of a smile. "Emma, congratulations." "Thank you." In my daze, I heard Andrew take a deep breath. "Emma, I've remembered everything that happened. I'm sorry for what I did to you, for playing with your feelings. It's understandable that you hate me, but I really didn't want you to die." I looked at the blinking neon lights and didn't respond. "Emma, besides hatred, is there anything else?" "No," I interrupted Andrew firmly. "Some things are destined to be irreparable from the start." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. After a while, I heard him say, "I understand." Chapter 15. The next time I saw Andrew was in the hospital corridor. Andrew, in his wheelchair, looked pale and exhausted. The once vibrant youth now seemed like an old man nearing the end of his days. According to his caretaker, Andrew had refused treatment, and his accident injuries had flared up again. In just a few short months, Andrew's disability had caused a dramatic shift in his family dynamics. The illegitimate son of his father had been openly brought back and seamlessly took over the family business. His mom was so distraught that she had been hospitalized, and the family was in chaos. Andrew, however, seemed indifferent to the turmoil. Day after day, he stayed in his apartment, staring vacantly at the begonia flowers in the garden. When our eyes met, Andrew visibly froze. His eyes betrayed an unhidden hope. "Emma, did you come to see me?" He asked the question and then self-deprecatingly smiled. "How could you? You hate me so much." He looked at me cautiously. "Emma, if there is an afterlife, would you ever forgive me?" I gave him a smile. "Andrew, everything is in the past. I don't hate you anymore, but I don't want to forgive you either." As soon as my words left my lips, the faint glimmer in Andrew's eyes finally vanished, leaving them dull and despondent. Although I no longer hated him, I would never forget the anger I felt when I discovered the truth. I can choose not to hate, but forgiveness is another matter entirely. Chapter 16. The last news I received about Andrew was his death. Andrew, the heir of the family, committed suicide in his private apartment at Haitang Bay at 3 in the morning. He died by wrist slashing, and at the time of his death, there was a bright bouquet of begonia flowers beside him. Begonias were my favorite flowers. In my past life, to make me happy, Andrew had planted an entire garden of begonias. Perhaps Andrew truly loved me at that time as well. As the gentle breeze brushed against the window, my thoughts stirred, and I seemed to see again the young man I once loved deeply. When I won awards, he would present me with a bouquet of flowers. He would take me out to celebrate with food and fun all night long. When my exam results were poor and I was scolded, He would drag me to the library for extra lessons. When he made me speechless with frustration, he would affectionately tap my forehead with a mix of helplessness and indulgence. I would squeeze through crowds, foolishly hugging his backpack while he played basketball. Then we would ride home together under the glow of the setting sun. Back then, I thought we would be like this forever. Little did I know that reality would strike us so harshly. It wasn't until much later that I learned the meaning of begonia flowers. Painful longing, hopeless love, just like between Andrew and me. I loved him when he ignored me. By the time he turned back to me, I no longer wanted to look back.